You know, we're all playing the game of money every single day. We work for it, we save it, we spend it. But what if the rules of that game are kind of rigged? Well, today, we're going to look at a completely different version of the game, one with a new kind of money that just might be the winning strategy for everybody.
Okay, so let's just kick things off with this really powerful idea. Just imagine for a second that our whole economy is just one massive, multiplayer game. And in this game, money is simply how you keep score. Your job, your savings, your investments, all of those are just moves you're making to get a higher score. Seeing it this way, well, it's the key to really understanding the rules and figuring out the best way to play.
So if we're thinking about money as a game, it turns out there are really two different versions we can choose from. On one side, you have game one, which we'll call the referee's game, and that's the one most of us are playing right now. And on the other side, there's game two, the player's game, which you'll see operates under a completely different set of rules. So let's start by breaking down the game we all know.
All right, game one. This is the world of government money, what people call fiat money. It's called fiat because it only has value because a government says it does. Think of the US dollar, the euro, you name it. In this game, there's a really powerful referee, a central bank, and they can actually change the rules and even change the score while you're in the middle of playing. To see how this affects every single person playing, we first need a tool to understand why we play the way we do in the first place.
And that tool, it's called praxeology. Now, I know, it sounds super complicated, but it's actually built on one incredibly simple and powerful idea about why we do, well, anything. It's the basic logic that governs every single player in this game of money.
And here it is. This is the one idea that explains everything. Every action we take is on purpose. We are all, always, trying to trade a situation we like less for one we like more. You're not just randomly playing the game, right? Every financial choice you make, from buying a cup of coffee to saving for retirement, is a purposeful move you're making to try and improve your position.
And that leads us to a really crucial concept that defines our strategy: time preference. Think of it this way. If you have a low time preference, you're patient. You'll save your points today for a bigger reward later on. But if you have a high time preference, you want that reward right now, even if it means it's a smaller one. This simple choice between saving for later or spending right now is the engine of all economic progress.
So, let's look at how this plays out in the referee's game. First off, the referee can just create new points, new money, out of thin air, whenever they want. And when that happens, the value of all the points you've worked so hard to save, it goes down. We call this inflation. This system fundamentally punishes the savers, the players who are patient, the ones with a low time preference, and it actually rewards borrowing and spending. It basically pushes everyone to have a high time preference, to spend their points as fast as possible before they lose their value.
So what's the alternative? Well, that brings us to game two, the player's game. Now, I want you to imagine a game with no referee. A game where the rules are fixed, they're totally transparent, and they can't be changed by anyone. It's a game built on pure, simple predictability. And to understand the best strategy here, we're going to need our second tool. And that tool is game theory. You've probably heard of it. It's basically the science of strategy. It's all about figuring out how players should act when the result of their choice depends on what other people choose to do. It's the perfect way to understand our multiplayer money game, especially a game where the rules are set in stone.
And here's the thing that's so surprising, the big takeaway from decades of game theory research. In games that get played over and over again, like, an economy, the winning long-term strategy isn't being selfish. It's cooperation. But, and this is a big but, this amazing outcome only really happens when the rules of the game are stable and predictable.
There is this political scientist, Robert Axelrod, who famously ran a tournament with a bunch of computer programs playing this kind of game, and the winning strategies, they all shared these four qualities. First, be nice. Don't be the first one to cheat. Second, be provocable. If someone cheats you, you retaliate. Third, be forgiving. If they go back to cooperating, let it go. And most important of all, be clear. Your strategy has to be predictable so other players can learn to cooperate with you. It's this beautiful illustration that stability and predictability are the soil where cooperation and trust can actually grow. So what gives us those clear, predictable rules for our money game? The answer is something called sound money. Sound money has fixed properties. It's hard to make more of it, so it tends to hold its value. This hardness is the key, and we can actually measure it with something called the stock-to-flow ratio. It's basically just a comparison of how much of it already exists
versus how much new stuff is created each year. The higher that ratio, the harder and more sound the money is.
And that, right there, brings us to the ultimate example of the player's game, Bitcoin. It was designed from the ground up to be the world's first true sound money for the digital age. It's a game where the rules are enforced by pure mathematics and code, not by powerful referees.
The single most important rule in a Bitcoin game is this number, 21 million. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, period. That's not some policy that a committee can change later. It is a law that's literally embedded in the code itself. No referee can alter it. No player can create more points. This absolute scarcity makes it the most predictable monetary asset in all of human history.
And this table really puts it all into perspective, showing just how hard different types of money are. For centuries, gold was the undisputed king of sound money because its high stock-to-flow ratio made it so difficult to just create more of it. As you can see, Bitcoin is already right there, rivaling gold. But here's the really incredible part. Because its new supply is programmed to shrink over time, by 2025 it's on track to become roughly twice as hard as gold.
So let's tie this all together. How does Bitcoin win the game? Well, first, its fixed rules, that absolute scarcity we talked about, it completely flips the script. It encourages saving and rewards players with a low time preference because your points don't just melt away. Second, this predictability creates the perfect environment for those winning strategies from game theory to really shine. The rules are clear, so players can trust each other and cooperate for the long term. And finally, when you combine a society that saves and invests for the future with one that cooperates, well, that's the foundation for real, lasting prosperity.
Look, for most of our lives, we've all been stuck playing in the referee's game, a game where the rules can change on a whim and where saving your points is often a losing move. But now, for the first time, there's a player's game available to everyone, a game with predictable rules that reward patience and reward cooperation. The game of money is changing for sure. The only real question left is, which one will you play?